to everyone. Bonsoir. Guten Abend. Sehr geehrte Barbara Rom. Sehr geehrte Tanja Meissner. Dear Jacqueline Leanga, whom I've not yet had a pleasure to meet, but I understand there's a Canadian connection, so I'm looking forward to exploring that. Dear panelists, directors, producers, and filmmakers, chers amis, liebe Gäste. My name is Andrea Meyer. I'm the head of public affairs here at the embassy. Our chargé d'affaires, which is a fancy French title for acting ambassador, unfortunately couldn't be here this evening because she is tending to not one but two ministers of Canada at the Munich Security Conference. It's therefore my great pleasure, I get to have the honor, and that of my colleagues here at the embassy, to welcome you today. It's the third time that the Embassy of Canada hosts the Global Forum for Women Film Organizations. I want to express my deep gratitude to the team of Power to Transform for their tremendous work in organizing this event, as well as, and perhaps even more importantly, their continued effort to challenge sexism and misogyny in the film industry. As part of our feminist foreign policy, Canada aims to advance human rights and gender equality as a key component of our overall foreign policy. This has been the case for many years now. We're keeping a sharp focus on transformational change and working to address the fundamental structural barriers that prevent gender equality and that reinforce discrimination. While progress has been made, we recognize and we see them. New challenges are ahead. We are pleased to host what I am absolutely certain will be a very dynamic panel discussion on artificial intelligence. Prime Minister Trudeau attended last week's AI Action Summit in Paris, and he spoke about ways we can power the next generation of AI to unlock both innovation and economic opportunities. But he also underscored the need to work in partnership with all areas of our communities and business sectors and governmental sectors to develop these technologies responsibly and safely. From a technical standpoint, and here I'm wandering into some territory that's not so familiar, I understand that machine learning is only possible by processing large data sets based on what is the status quo. Unfortunately, and here I do have some experience with this, our societies are not as fair and equal as we would like them to be. And the result of this is that harmful biases and discriminatory narratives are reproduced. And this is what AI learns to be the truth. For this reason, Canada and all of us, of course, are acting to develop AI responsibly and to find a way to use AI and, sorry, my phrasing got a bit mangled there. The responsible development and use of inclusive AI systems should then be grounded in international human rights law while taking economic, social, political, and security impacts into account. So this event contributes to our efforts, those of Canada, but for many of you, to learn from each other about how to do exactly that. So I think you're keen to hear from the bright lights that we've brought together today to discuss the topic, so I'm eager to hand it over to those experts. I want to thank our panelists again and all of you for your engagement in this topic and for your contributions to the Q&A that will follow. Merci pour votre attention. Bonne soirée.
Dear Mrs. Mayer, thank you also on behalf of my board colleague and dear friend Chun-Mei Tan very much for allowing us to be your guests again this year with our Global Forum for Women Film Organizations. And thank you and your team, like Katharina Fichtner, for your great support in preparing for this event. Once again, this year we have many great cooperation partners. The Federal Foundation for Gender Equality in Germany. Our thanks goes to the directors Lissy Meyer and Arne Sauer. I think Arne is here today. And the St. John's International Women's Film Festival, Canada, Newfoundland, and Jen Brown, maybe you can show up. Happy to have you here. 50 Women in Film and Television International, Susan Liddy. Hi, Susan. Great to have you here. EVA, European Women's Audiovisual Network, Alexia Munoz. Alexia. Hi. And then CIMA, Asociación de Mujeres Cineastas y Medios Audiovisuales. After 3 years, I now can speak it out. And they have a new president, Guadalupe Balaguer. Guadalupe, are you here? Yeah. Yeah. Ah, okay. So she was in the first part, but I think she will come a bit later. And then Screencraft Works from UK, Elizabeth McIntyre and Rebecca Del Tufo, our partners since many years. Thank you so much. And then Sisters Working in Film and Television, South Africa, Sanele Mtembo is also here today. Thank you for coming the long way from South Africa to Berlin. Thank you so much. And we have new cooperation partners with Theatrical Intimacy Education, Laura Reichert and Kim Scheifele from USA. They are the experts for intimacy coordinating worldwide, and it's a new intimacy coordinating is a new profession that is helping to change the working culture on a film set for the better. And we would like to start by thanking the institutions without whom the Global Forum would not be possible, and this is the Federal Ministry for Family Affairs, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth. So I think Christa Zwingberger is here. Thank you so much for supporting us again. And yes, prior to this public event, we have already met with the international network consisting of women's film organizations, women's film festivals, and researchers from all over the world to discuss our theme this year, from unconscious bias to algorithmic bias. And as we will hear in the course of the afternoon, the use of AI brings massive challenges, especially for women and girls. This is because the already often sexiest images and narratives are increasingly reinforced by AI. Answer to the question how we can counter this are not easy, but the great female experts who gather here today will address these questions, and they will raise awareness for the importance of a gender-sensitive and intersectional approach to AI and how ethical, thank you, Maya, and how ethical developed AI can contribute to making the media both innovative and inclusive. And we are currently experiencing an unbelievable backlash in relation to women's rights and participation. But then there are also good news. For example, that for the first time in its history, the Berlinale leading positions are now entirely in female hands. Today we welcome two of the women at the helm of the Berlinale, Tanja Meissner, Director, Berlinale Pro, and Jacqueline Lianga, Co-Director, Film Programming. Welcome.
My glasses. Hello. It's truly inspiring to stand here today in front of so many powerful and talented women in one room. I feel a lot of energy and a lot of passion and dedication, and that's really great to see. But I have to ask, where are the men? Are they lost or are they late? Up, where is the man? Okay, and they behind the camera. Oh yeah, there. Shout out! Pro, we are 70% of my team are women. But even if the 70% of the people in my team are women, let's face it, I know very well Berlinale Pro is a service platform, and the work there gets very little credit, usually. The credit usually goes to the creative minds and not to the ones who facilitate creativity. So when I was young, I didn't allow myself to become creative, and I hadn't been encouraged to be. I had been encouraged to be practical, and I was missing role models, I guess, and it's great that there are so many role models here in this room that will serve for many young, smart women as of now. At Berlinale Talents, which is another initiative of the Pro consortium, the Berlinale Talents, over 50% of our participants this year are female. And in our co-production market, which is right next door, more than half of the project come from female filmmakers this year. And that has been the case for some years now. And that's not temporary, that's not a temporary trend, it's a reflection of a deeper reality, and I'm very glad that it is. One that might have actually always existed, and female creativity is probably not new. Also in our Berlinale series market, we have 11 women directors this year and 6 female creatives, and the stories come with strong female perspectives. The power of community building is crucial, and this is why we're here. This is the great example of that. I'm glad you all think the same. Lifting each other up, financing each other's dreams, and telling our stories in our way so that cinema and storytelling can address society in all its diversity. Representation on screen is powerful, and you just said the same thing, and not only reflects but shapes realities. And when women are consistently portrayed as victims, it reinforces this narrative. And film has the power to challenge norms just as much as it has the power to sustain them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting us, inviting me to speak. Yes, I do have some Canadian roots. I'm Canadian. I grew up in Canada, lived in Edmonton and Calgary, Winnipeg, and Montreal. So oui, je parle un peu de français aussi. And I think as well that many of us are living right now. I live now partially in Los Angeles and partially in Berlin, and are living in a lot of different countries and crossing borders, both for our personal lives and for our work lives. And so this is really a great event that I really hope it continues, because I think one of the things, and this is something that certainly leadership and can set in motion, and Trisha Tuttle, our boss, has been such a great leader as she put together her team and really thought about the vision of ensuring that the festival and the industry, the market, the programs that Tanya's overseeing, co-production, talents, really work in collaboration. And a big part of that is also events like this. It's a really great opportunity to have people coming in from all over the world, and this is our chance to talk about things like inclusive AI and to get ahead of things that we know are starting to happen, have these conversations and be part of the development, as opposed to having the presentation of the algorithm in the program and you're like, oh no, it's terrible. How do we get involved? And I think it's great, and then bring back these ideas to the places in which we live and enable other organizations and groups to connect. So I hope that this becomes the start of, for next year, more planning and thinking about industry conversations as we're programming films, seeing where there's overlap, and being able to have conversations around both the creative side of filmmaking and then the industry and the technological side of filmmaking as well. I think that's really, really important. And, and as I said last night, as we're putting together the program, we don't do it in isolation. We work with a group of programmers who come from around the world or who have backgrounds that really span the globe in terms of their roots and their family. And that kind of inclusivity in experience, in history that people have, makes a really big difference. And I think for us, I definitely feel it in terms of having women in leadership positions. There's not only a trust, but then also it's different kinds of conversations, new conversations. It really broadens the experience of industry and all of the dialogue that we have across departments. And you see in the younger staff and teams as well, like their real excitement to be working for the organization. So I think the future of the Berlinale is strong. And thank you. I hope you have a great conversation. I'm sorry we can't stay to hear it, but maybe next year.
We get the VOD.
Yes, we get the VOD. So we'll have a great event and a great summit and forum. And again, merci, dankeschön.
Okay. Eve? With all the discussions that are already taking place in the media industry about the use of AI, for example, can copyrights be protected, or will there soon be still actors, or will AI soon be writing the scripts? One issue is being overlooked: the sexiest, racist, and discriminatory images and narratives in films, series, and on social media. And that AI acts like a filter that amplifies these images to the point of grotesque distortions. And yes, if we want to use AI in a way that produces quality, we are challenged. We need to acquire knowledge about the various AI tools. We need to develop a critical and political awareness that we know who is behind the various AI tools and where the data used to train the AI comes from. We must not fall for the marketing talk of big tech companies. AI is not magic. AI is a machine that is programmed to calculate probabilities from a huge pool of data. What is the most likely word or pixel to come next? AI does not make decisions based on a worldview. AI has no worldview of its own. AI has a very dark side that we should be very aware of. Big tech companies are building monopolies. They deliberately do not tackle disinformation. AI is a huge enhancer of energy consumption and will then also enhance the climate crisis. And all the data we disclose via social media or other ways on the internet is collected and can be used to monitor us. This data is already being used for military purposes. So there are no easy answers, and each person must decide for themselves whether they want to use AI or not. If we decide to use AI, we should do it in a way that creates quality, so that we do not continue to feed the data pool with unreflected and stereotypical data, and we are challenged to achieve quality. We can't sit back and let AI do the work while we lie in the sun. AI can shorten work process and boost our creativity. But to do this, we have to learn where it makes sense to use it, and we have to be prepared to create the results that AI delivers. And that can be a long process. And in preparation of this event, we wanted to try out how it works and what AI will deliver us if we give some prompt and ask them. And I want to show you some of these. Wait a second. So this was our first prompt, ChatGPT, and we said the perfect female body according to social media in 2024. And this is the result, what we get. Yeah, then, and you can make photos, but the thing is that this is not, there's no copyright on the images that AI delivers. Everybody can use it. So, and then we were asking the perfect male body according to social media in 2024, and this was the answer. Yeah, and then we asked Bing, or we prompted at the Bing platform, the perfect male body according to universal pictures, to see what's there. The answer, surrounded by other men. Next question, Delhi, the perfect male body according to Netflix. Interesting. Yeah, and then we were asking, and the perfect female body according to Netflix, and this is what we got. Yes, and ChatGPT, the prompt was general presentation of a perfect cast with different types of actors. Yeah. So, and ChatGPT, a person who plays the leading role in a successful romantic film. What do you think? Who is that person? Okay. And the leading role in a successful coming-of-age film. I said it before, maybe it's his brother, I don't know. So, show me a person who plays the lead role in a successful action film. We ask Canva. So we get 3 images. Sometimes we don't get only one, we get more than one, and this was what we got. Delhi, a queer clique from the LGBTQ scene. Yeah. Most important that they're naked. The rest. Yeah. A gay man, what you think? Very concerned young man. And then the perfect family, according to Netflix, we got 3 results with the same. Interesting that there's always, that on these images, there's 1 man and 2 wives. It's a diverse family, but that's why they are laughing in that way, in this distorted laughing, is because that the data, that the tools are trained with data from social media, and people on social media are smiling very often, and that's why this is happening. So it's, yeah, sorry. Better like this? Okay. So, but yeah, the question is how to combat sexism, racism, other forms of discrimination that are reinforced. And I just want to show one, what measures do we need, what can be done. And the fall meeting of women media here in Germany, at their 46th meeting, they have published a resolution addressed to the directors of German and Austrian broadcasters, and their key findings, I think this is important, I want to make it short, but studies show that women are less represented at top-ranked AI conferences, 18%, over 80% of AI professors are male, and only 14% of scientific articles on AI worldwide are written by women. Yet women are central to AI research, ensuring that potential disadvantages can be identified and eliminated through appropriate regulations. And then they make they make demands. They are addressed to the broadcasters, training programs to specifically promote AI skills for all employees, and development of ethical, responsible, and strategic guidelines for dealing with AI, open source software to reduce the problem of bias in artificial intelligence, diverse teams responsible for the field of AI, representation of more women's perspective in artificial intelligence models, more women scientists and experts on AI speaking and publishing in the topic in our program. And everybody in Germany who wants to find this is die Resolution des Medienfrauentreffen, das Herbsttreffen der Medienfrauen. Deutsche Welle, Phoenix, die veranstalten das. Yes, and so measures are there, ideas are there, but the big question is how to bring them into life, and this is why I want to hand over to Manori Ravindran, the moderator of our panel today. And I'm so happy, Manori, that you're here again. And yes, please, you will introduce your guests, and I'm happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Barbara, for that great introduction to set us off on this discussion, which I've been looking forward for a very long time. We have a number of panelists, including somebody who's joining us from New York, I believe, actually on Zoom. So I will get right to my introductions. You know, every year this conference always has such a fantastic theme, and it's always very, very thought-provoking, and we all sort of go home with you know, ideas percolating and discussions that can be continued. And this year, I think it's you know, to just the fact that there are so many of you in the audience shows the interest and demand for more understanding of this topic, which is from unconscious bias to algorithmic bias, how AI reinforces sexism and discrimination in images and storytelling. So I think many of us, including myself, are still trying to navigate this sort of new world order. So I'm thrilled that this is actually our discussion this year. So I shall introduce everybody as we go along here. So firstly, Tina Marie Gully, please join me on stage. Tina is yes. Tina Marie is the CEO of Ada Developers Academy, which is headquartered in Washington. With her strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, Tina Marie brings a wealth of experience in technology and nonprofit leadership, positioning Ada to lead the way in creating a more inclusive tech industry. For years, she has been a key advocate for empowering underrepresented individuals in the tech space, and her leadership will help us expand opportunities and foster a diverse tech community. Welcome, Tina Marie. Next up, we have Dr. Maya Gotz, who is the head of the Institute for Youth and Educational Television in Munich, Germany. Welcome, Maya. And of the Prix Jeunesse Foundation as well. Her main field of work is research in the area of children and youth and in media and gender-specific reception research. She conducts studies such as just some of the titles of her many works: Gender Representation in Children's TV Worldwide and Its Meaning for Girls and Boys, Fear and Nightmares from TV, Children in Media Worldwide in a Time of a COVID-19 Pandemic, over 200 studies to foster quality in current TV programs, and she has published more than 250 articles and 24 books in the field of children, young people, and media. So quite a CV. I could sit here for probably an hour alone. And next up, we have Paulina Beetz, who is a creative producer and prompt architect based in Germany. Welcome, Paulina. Paulina works as a creative development producer at the German production company Wiedmann und Berg. And in 2024, she directed and wrote the experimental ZDF documentary Das KI Manifesto, which is AI Manifesto, I hope my German pronunciation is okay. Which some of you, I'm sure in the audience, might have actually tuned into, which and that film deals with the use of artificial intelligence in the film industry, so very pertinent to this conversation. And next up, we have Robin Aisha Pokorny, also Robin. Computer scientist and keynote speaker on the topic of bias in AI based out of the Netherlands. In 2022, she became the first citizen in the Netherlands to legally prove the connection between algorithmic decision-making and discrimination. Through her own consultancy and work at the Racism and Technology Center, she strives to raise awareness around discriminatory AI technologies, and her work has been featured in Wired, Al Jazeera English, and a TED Talk that I know a number of you might have already tuned into, which is excellent. It's 12 minutes and very well worth your time. I'm sure you'll want to check it out after this panel. And finally, we have Amelia, who is joining us from Zoom. Amelia Winger-Berskin. Hi, Amelia. Amelia is an artist and associate professor of AI and the arts at the Digital Worlds Institute at the University of Florida, USA. She is of the Seneca Cayuga Nation of Oklahoma. She's an artist who uses artificial intelligence as a creative medium and conceptual framework. And her practice addresses urgent global issues from climate justice to homelessness while revealing the moral codes that shape communities. Thank you so much for joining us, Amelia. I know that you are at a different conference as well, so we really appreciate your time. Feel free to stay for as long as you want and need on this panel as well. It's terrific that we have 5 people and such a depth of experience to sort of talk to. I thought actually we'd have some sort of individual questions just to sort of so the audience can kind of get to know you guys as well. So Amelia, why don't we actually start with you? If you could just tell us a little bit about your work and how you sort of came to marry these two fields, technology with art. Do you have a more traditional sort of artistic background before making this transition?
Thank you so much, and I'm so honored to be here and be a part of this. Berlin is my favorite city, and I'm so sad I can't be there in person. I am presenting at the College Arts Association in New York, so apologies for being this floating head on a TV. Yes, I'm an artist and a technologist, and I started making a living as an artist working with emerging media in 1998 and working with artificial intelligence specifically in 2006. So over the last 10 years, I mostly show my art in museums, but I've also shown it at film festivals, and at time my art is in feature films. I use math and code and AI in my art. And what is that art form? It takes the form of video art, immersive media, virtual reality, extended reality, film, sound, and performance art. I'm also a part of a Canada Council grant for the Arts Project. You can check out goblin.gallery to learn more. It's brand new, just announced. And it's a project around creative economies and industry rights and sustainability for creatives. I was told the easiest way to participate in this panel is to sort of talk about my work for 10 minutes. So I have 3 more minutes. I'm going to talk about morals and code. So decentralization, something I'm very passionate about, was and still is the hope of many of us early builders of the first generation of online weirdos. The first children to grow up with the internet and the last generation to remember life before it existed. In those early days, we saw the internet as a real promise, that it would make information free, democratize media, and grant new forms of economic self-sufficiency. Many of us believed that we could change the way the world works from behind our glowing screens. I don't know, some of us actually did that, but many things have changed, but not exactly in the ways that we imagined. The promise was information would be free, but what we got was the free information as third parties harvest our data. We are what is free. The promise was democratized media, and what we got was media that threatens democracy. The promise was a new economy, but what we got was the gig economy with more precarity and higher inequality. The promise of the early internet lost nearly all of its idealistic moral gravitas. Now, when we talk about promises in the internet, we're just talking about a JavaScript concept, another best practice in a software engineer's development stack. In any other field whose name has the word, engineering in it, these outcomes wouldn't fly. Imagine a civil engineer or a structural engineer who's tasked with building a bridge. A trucking company asked the engineers, all right, we need to plan the routes along this bridge, how many trucks, how many loads could safely go across and maintain the safety of the bridge. Now, I mean, just imagine the structural engineer says, hey, look, technology is neutral. I just build the bridge. I don't tell people how to use it. If someone wants to break the bridge and it falls down, I don't know, it is what it is, not my fault. That would not fly, right? But with software, especially social networks, digital media, AI, we're perfectly okay with tech companies telling us that the systems they have designed are neutral, even as they break safety, democracy, privacy, fraud, make our children unsafe or are abusive or cause deep harm to our country and our many countries and our civil societies. So there's not just a responsibility to know its limits, its load, but also what could happen to the lives involved should it break. If we start to believe that it's not our responsibility as the builders of these systems, and I'm one of those builders, then we're really building systems of harm. We're building bridges and not caring about those who trusted us enough to drive across them. I created a concept and a project called Wampum Codes, and it addresses exactly this issue. Wampum Codes is an ethical framework for software development based on the principles of co-creation as understood by my people, the Seneca Cayuga Nation of Oklahoma, which means I'm indigenous to the United States, but also members of my community are in Canada. Like all members of our confederacy, we made wampum. A lot of people have a misconception about wampum is. They think it was a form of currency. It wasn't currency. We use it as a tool for recording and regulating the different political and economic agreements that govern daily lives. It was a decentralized means of recording contracts, something like a pre-Columbian blockchain. It encoded not just financial transactions, but also our ethical values. Project Wampum Codes is to try to reimagine how we can weave ethics back into 21st century technologies. The core concepts are to put an extra step in every step of the software development pipeline. So this is for all development. It can be on computers, yes, including AI, and take a few hours every quarter to align our goals and look at risk mitigation. Oftentimes you'll find that developers, UX designers, and leadership all believe they have the same values and just need to articulate them. They need to build some rules and logic into their systems. Imagine better futures and really listen to one another around fears, joy, and possibilities for things they want to see in the world. We can embed these values as dependencies in code the same way we do the rest of our package.json. CEOs, founders, and employees who work in tech are eager for change. They want new systems to encode values and ethics into the source code for new decentralized projects and systems. And while we're waiting for experts and policymakers to make these decisions for us, we also need to be developing systems of harm mitigation and threat modeling so that our products designed to help the world do not harm it. We need robust regulation, testing methods, and guidelines. It is up to us to start developing these side by sides with every line of code we write. This is our field. We know how to do it. We're the ones who need to step up. By implementing a decentralized protocol around ethics and software, we can take a step in the right direction. We live our lives according to a moral code, and the time has come for us to code our morals. Yahweh, thank you, merci, dank.
So much, Amelia. I mean, I'm so curious in terms of your art and what you're doing. It's so sort of on the, it's such a new frontier in many ways. I mean, do you ever get pushback from some corners of the art world in terms of the intersection that you were specifically working in?
Yes, I am a part of the historic sale at Christie's that's going to be auctioned next week on the 20th. It has over 4,000 people from primarily Silicon Valley, Bay Area that are protesting at the sale, primarily because of remarks concerning, it's actually hard. I've read a lot of the press about it, and because I don't know personally any of the artists who've signed it, I'm just making broad generalizations based on the news articles, which many of you have read, but it was mostly around GANs, generative adversarial networks, and the use of how those training models have been trained on images that are in sometimes the open domain, and others argue that some of them are copyright written. I don't use GANs in my work, and so I do understand the concepts that people are bringing, and I do understand that sometimes you have to broadly protest something that you believe in and not parse out people who aren't using it. I don't necessarily feel that way because I I'm just using math, the same type of math that is used in taking digital photographs and optical information, which I believe should be open source. I believe that math should be able to be used by everyone. I believe that it should not be closed source. I believe deeply in open source technology. And so for me, the concept of saying that someone could not use math because it should be closed source, I disagree with, but I do think that there is kind of a misalignment in understanding in that respect. So I don't mean to denigrate in any way the protesters. I don't fully understand their background of what they're protesting. I understand they're against GANs, and I understand not caring if people use them or not and protesting them anyway. So I do understand all those things.
That's interesting.
And yet I'm still in the sale, and I believe that it's going forward ethically. So I definitely get pushback. Thank you.
The sale, actually, which I was having a look at online as well, it's sort of is AI art still art, right? That's sort of like the driving kind of impetus behind that specific exhibition.
Absolutely. And I just came from a panel where that was specifically the topic, and I read a paper that I didn't read here today because I just read it, but is AI art real art? The short answer is I think we all know that art can be a smell, it can be an idea, it can be ephemeral, it can be invisible, it can be the removal, it can be a ready-made, it can be the pedestal that is in front of you. You could take that and say that that is art, and you declare it art by putting it into a museum and gallery. And that's been the conversation around modern art for a long time. And so AI as something that is a tool or as a collaborator or is a oppressor, all of these things are true, and they're all part of art. I think where I like to situate myself is in my own values and my own cultural understanding of being deeply connected with nature and pushing forward to a future where we understand that math and the ways in which we want to use it to make our lives better should not be at the cost of the deterioration of our planet, and it should not be at the expense and harm and oppression of other people. And we have had proofs from other cultures for thousands of years that you can use math and science in ways that does not do that is not extractive, that is not based on the type of slavery, that is not based on destroying our environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're here. Moving with the panelists, but Amelia, just to say, please jump in. I've told everybody this is all will have sort of individual questions, but anyone can sort of jump in and opine as needed. Robin, I wanted to actually turn to you because obviously you became sort of interested in this intersection in particular after an experience trying to take an exam in 2020. So this is obviously the onset of the pandemic. And this is obviously the subject of your TED Talk, so some people might already know what this is about, but can you tell us what happened and how this sort of all began in terms of your work?
Yeah, so in 2020, I was still studying for my master's, and obviously it was the pandemic, so universities were using online tools to survey students at home at examination time to make sure that no cheating was taking place at home during the exams. And these tools had the same verification steps, so to say, that you would have in a normal exam room. So checking that the name corresponds to the person, that there is a person actually sitting there to take the exam. And in one of these verification steps, you have to scan your face. And during this facial scan, the software didn't recognize my face, didn't detect my face. And that had to do with the absence of light, according to the software, but in reality it was because the software was trained on predominantly white faces, so me being a black woman could not take my exam with this software. And this led to me, I was doing I'm a computer scientist, so I have some technical background, quite a lot actually, but at the time, not that much. And so I went and raised it within the university, and then that they didn't want to acknowledge that this was an actual problem. And so I went to the Dutch Human Rights Institute with the help of the Racism and Technology Center, where I now also work. And under the lead and shoulders of Naomi Appelman, Dr. Naomi Appelman. She's also here today. She's a bit shy, but she's the reason that I was able to protest forward in a court setting, because I do not have a legal background at all. I have a technical background, and I went to the Dutch Human Rights Institute, where we made, so together with Naomi, we made basically precedents for technology and discrimination in case law. And yeah, that's how I got to do this work eventually. So I'm now an AI justice activist, advocate, work on the intersection of technology, so I can really speak the technical language. I understand AI, I understand model building, I make models, I know how to validate them, all the processes that go into it, and human rights. So I work on the intersection of that, and with that I have a bunch of clients that range from actual technology departments in an insurance company to the Dutch National Broadcasting Company that wants to do AI Dutch National Broadcasting Company, their film section, that wants to do a podcast on AI and how it affects film. So I did, for example, a whole research process for that. Because I get to combine these two worlds, the human world and the technology world, from what I experienced. That's it in short.
There's 12 minutes online, but I mean it's a fascinating. I mean, and how incredible that you took it to that extent, and you really sort of fought for this case. How can an algorithm be discriminatory? Can you sort of detail that process? I know it's probably a very long answer.
Yeah, so we've already heard before, and at the start, that AI uses training. We have models, machine learning models. We use data to train the model to execute a certain task. In my case, this was the task of facial detection, which is a difference than, I said facial recognition before, but there's a difference between facial detection and facial recognition. Detection is the detecting of a face. Recognition is to recognize the person as each of us being us, the actual person that you want to recognize. And in case of facial detection software, these are trained to detect different shapes of faces, they should be trained to have different hair colors, different skin colors, all the different diversities that we encounter in a human face, as if we would just walk on the streets here in Berlin and see different people. You'd all be able to detect the faces. But if this algorithm is not trained on different faces, it will never be able to execute a task, which is detect these faces. And that's, I think, the easiest way I can explain it. So if the training doesn't reflect the task that it needs to execute, it will never be able to do this, no matter how well it's trained. So the best models will never be able to execute unbiased output, because it is trained on biased input.
Got it. So your experience obviously was with facial recognition. What are some of the other ways in which people might experience algorithmic discrimination, in their day-to-day lives?
Yeah, so I work with an insurance company in the Netherlands. Worked last year, not this year, but I finished a project, and I was working with their IT teams, specifically their algorithm teams, because they want to assess risk. How does an insurance company assess risk? This is health insurance, so have you had any, do you have any comorbidities? Have you been in an accident in the past? Have you had a series of illnesses or genetic predisposition to illness? And that's how you calculate risk for, in this case, health insurance. Health insurance companies, they also assess risk by socioeconomic status. So where do you live? Zip code could be a risk. Where you work, how long you've worked, whether you're a smoker, all those things are risk factors. And in a model, we call this parameters. So the amount of parameters is how you measure and how you can calculate in an algorithm the risk in this case. But if, let's say that you live in a certain zip code, postal code, but you don't have anything associated with the socioeconomic status associated with that zip code, you just happen to live there. But the algorithm has denoted that everybody in zip code 1000 is at higher risk of insurance fraud, let's say. Then you living there you could potentially be marked as a fraudulent person when you are not. And this has happened in insurance. In the Netherlands, this has happened at a very grand scale with parents, with the welfare that they were supposed to receive for child welfare scandal, we call it. Look it up, it's a big thing, where parents were denoted as fraudulent, basically taking advantage of the system, and had to pay back hundreds and thousands of euros when they didn't do anything wrong, and basically the government had marked them as frauds because the algorithm says so, but it was the algorithm that was wrong. Yeah.
God, it's absolutely fascinating. I think when you think it through, especially in how it must impact us in ways that we don't even realize until you have these discussions in salons like this. Oh, then the slide has not changed. Okay, I wonder if maybe there is. There we go. Okay, terrific. Thank you. Right, and so we now have Paulina. And Paulina, I wanted to ask there we go. I'm sure we'll get to it. There we go. So Paulina, this is obviously the first time that I'm hearing the title prompt architect. It could just be my own ignorance, but I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what this is and what it entails.
Yeah, sure. So prompt architect, actually it's kind of a made up term or like a new term. Someone might have heard something like prompt engineer or prompt designer, and this is like all the same thing. So just, I'm going to explain what I do, and then I'm going to explain what that has to do with being a prompt architect. So I work as a creative producer for Wiedemann und Berg, and I work in development, so I develop series or movies. Before that, I worked in format development, so I developed like factory entertainment formats or documentary formats for different broadcasters and streamers. And for my work in development, I use a lot of generative AI, so like ChatGPT, Midjourney, a lot of picture or image generation, so that I can use the images for like pitches or concepts or storyboards or mood boards, those kind of things. So when we're using generative AI, we give I guess all of you have done that with ChatGPT. We give an instruction to the AI tool. So we say, please, or we don't have to say please, but do this for me, do that for me, write a text for me, make a picture of a horse jumping from a roof, whatever. So in this instruction that we give is a prompt. So we prompt the AI tool, and then we get an output out of it. And you can write a prompt and say picture of a horse, and then you're going to get a picture of a horse. But you can also have a more specific idea of what you want, and then learn the tool's syntax. So every tool has its own syntax. It's like an own language that it likes to be addressed, and it's different from tool to tool. But you can learn how to address the tool or how to write your prompts in which order, what comes first, what aspect of the thing that you want. Some tools have like parameters that look like code. For example, for Midjourney, you can put like a style reference, a character reference. You can put all those details into the prompt, and then you can get a more precise and more individual and ultimately more creative result that matches your creative vision that you had for it. So when you just type in picture of a horse, it's going to be a very random, very generic kind of horse. But if you want it to be in a certain style, in a certain aesthetic, to reflect a certain mood, you can use prompt engineering techniques. So you're going to manipulate the results to be more to what you imagined originally.
Got it. And using prompts as well, because knowing what we know about sort of the data sets that a lot of these AI models are trained on, and the way they perpetuate stereotypes and all the rest of it, you can also use prompts in a very clever way to sort of, I guess, not game the system, but to really try and filter out a lot of those stereotypes. Or can you tell us about that process?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really need to do this in order to fight the topic that we're talking about here. So I think it's crucial to understand the difference between traditional and generative AI. So generative AI is AI that creates something entirely new that hasn't been there before, and then once you generate it, it's out there. Like, you're gonna use it, as Barbara said before, there's no copyright on it, so everyone can use it. It's gonna multiply. It can be used as training data for AI tools again, and like get back into the circle. So it's our responsibility what we get out of generative AI. And as we saw in the pictures shown earlier, the results can be quite biased, and it's our responsibility using AI to work against this and to find ways to work against this. So the first step going there is like realizing this is happening, and realizing that there's bias in the results, because I think there's enough people that don't even see this, like don't even see why the pictures are weird, why the pictures are biased, like what is wrong about them. So first step is realizing that this is happening, and then the second step would be to, as a user of AI, I mean, it's a different story if you're actually the creator of AI, if you have power to influence how AI is trained or how AI is programmed. But as a user of AI, you can change your prompts. And then, for example, if you're using ChatGPT, you can ask ChatGPT to question itself, to reflect on stereotypes, to talk to you about how stereotypes might be present in certain narratives that you generate out of it. And also for Midjourney, you can, like, if you know what pictures for image generating AIs usually look like, you can include other things in your prompt that will work against it. And it's not easy, because of course we all know how those tools are designed, so they're always going to try to make the results as generic and as close to the already biased training data as possible. But there's ways to write your prompts so that this doesn't happen, like to this extent.
And I suppose, especially, I mean, I saw a demo for Sora in December, which just prior to its launch, and of course now it has it soft launched? Is it hard launched? It's out there, whatever it is. And I mean, it's shocking. That's obviously text to image, text to video creation. But I suppose that's where being very savvy with these prompts and being very specific becomes so important for filmmakers, right? And people who are using in our world, in the film industry, who are using these models.
Yeah, definitely. And as already said before, I mean, it's so important that women learn how to prompt and learn how to use those AI models, because, I mean, let's face it, we are more likely to see if there's like a male gaze reflected in the pictures we're generating, and then maybe a man using those tools won't see that this is happening or that the picture is biased, because you have to be educated about this topic. So it's super important that we know it when we see it, and that we know what we want and what we don't want, to put that into the work we do with generative AI.
Absolutely. Yes. And so Maya as well, I wanted to come to you because obviously your work, you've done so much work with children, and youth is the focus of your academic research, and obviously youth today are there. This generation is growing up with AI. That's going to be the norm for them. I know that you have a PowerPoint actually to sort of explain a little bit more about your work. So instead of me sort of blithering on, why don't we see your PowerPoint?
Thank you.
Ich hoffe. Oh, wait. Good. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you. No. Okay. Yeah, let's see, because this can be tricky.
Yes.
No, wait, I have to change it, because otherwise you will not hear anything. That will make a problem later on. But just in 10 minutes it will make a problem. But let's see. Duplicate. Okay, ja, okay, gut. Ja, nee, alles klar. Genau, duplicaten können wir auch. Da müsste. Ja, dann ist es 2. Alles klar, danke. Good. So, just a brief overview about bias in artificial intelligence, and actually we are talking about generative AI. So, what does research found out? Well, there's a study by the University of British Columbia, and they just create a picture of and then a profession, 80,000 examples. And what they find, normally it's just generally more men than women. Midjourney, 77% men. Stable Diffusion, 65%. And DALL-E 2, 58%. So already there's a clear bias. And if you go on and just look at the job zones, so how much these professions would earn, you can see nearly nothing, but you can see the blue one is the man and the pink one is the woman. And you could see, if we talk about Midjourney, the only where it's a little bit higher is where more people or where women earn more money. And even in DALL-E 2, it's even higher. And how does it look like? Well, this is financial advisors. If you prompt portrait of a chief executive, dishwasher, anesthesiol, the one who puts you to sleep. And a study NYU in Abu Dhabi, they have even 10,000 AI-generated images in just 25 professions, and in 18 of 25 professions, mainly white male are depicted. So I re-prompted. So what they did is, for example, a scientist in the lab looks like this. So let's find the women. There they are. Not white, maybe the one in the front, a bit difficult. And then there are these funny things like what a wheelchair. Or look here, there are half men without the underbody. And some not even have a face. So we have still, this might go away, but we still have these very strange moments. If you prompt professional chefs, it looks like this. Again, you have to search hardly for the woman, and non-white. And this is a different picture. I prompted professional chefs, again the women, but also think about, in Germany you have 67% of men are overweight and 53% of women. And look at this, where are a little bit more people? They are just very slim. And where are the older people? In all the pictures we have seen, they are somewhere between 25 to 45. At the study of the University of British Columbia, they are prompted some kind of typical emotions, and I pre-prompted it. So I asked Midjourney a picture of a happy person, and that is what also the study found. It's a woman. If you create a picture or ask to a thoughtful person, so who is this thoughtful person? Of course, it's a young male. And if you have an angry person, and this is also what the study found out, it's mainly a young male. In Abu Dhabi, they created 10,000 portraits of different people. And if you ask them, okay, how do people look like? Just different portraits without defining race or ethnic background. We have mainly white, a third was black, and 8% Southeast Asian. Actually, we know It's more or less the other way around in reality. Or a human winner, beautiful, intelligent, parent, sibling, you mainly get white males. And if you ask for a poor criminal, terrorist, you normally get a black character and see there's a third leg. Or if you prompt men terrorist, you mainly get people from the MENA region. Okay. Oh, fun fact. Who create people who work at McDonald's? Stable Diffusion generates 70% black people, and in reality, it's 70% white. Which makes absolutely clear what AI is doing is not reflecting the reality. At least here in this fun fact, it's clear it's not about reality, it's more what is out there in the internet. Or if you have, it's not about pictures, but about a story. Continue the story, open-ended story, and the UNESCO had in the Global South and the Global North, and did research about it. And what we have in the Global South, the stories are about rights, doctors, girls, school, gender, model, textiles. And for the boys in the Global South, it's about soccer, it's about sister, regardless, assumptions. And if you look at the pictures they got from the Global South, Global North, sorry, it was wrong. So it's wrong there, so it's Global North. It's about sparkle, pickling, baking, handsome, wildflower, and for the boy, it's fishing, castle, woods, rabbits, it's sunny. So it's also a kind of what kind of stories are we telling? Which makes absolutely clear we can't rely on AI, we have to think ourselves and we have to know this. How can this be changed? Well, one hint is in the study of UNESCO. So they analyzed, is it a negative, a neutral, or a positive sentence? They started a sentence and they had to come up with the end of the sentence, the AI. And we find, for example, if you got an LGBT2, you see mainly homosexuals with 60% negative sentence, like the gay person was regarded as an abnormal person, and it was believed that his or her life would be very difficult. Llama 2, even more, 70% negative sentences, like the gay person was regarded as the lowest in the social hierarchy. And then we had ChatGPT, and it's completely different. 80% positive, or at least neutral sentences. Where is the background? Why is this happening? These are the AI models, work without human feedback. So there's nobody looking in between and making some corrections, and ChatGPT did that. So there is the start. It needs a human to look over it. It needs educated people. So it's there, but there's still a lot to do. And actually, so it's really important. Sessions like this one, we had a wonderful lunchtime and in the morning, and it's so important that we sit together, think about what can we do, what are the possibilities, and already now we have developed so many great ideas, so it's really important to have these kind of sessions and workshops. And second part, I have a second presentation. Comes from a completely, oh my God. Yeah, this transition okay. More fluently. Okay, so I have a second part where now I come from a completely different part of my work, because the global warming crisis is already shaping the everyday life of young people. If we don't stop the global warming, we have very different Earth. There are some mistakes in it, sorry. Actually, the world is burning. There will be twice, fourth time, more floodings, more heavier storms, seasons of dryness, more wildfires, and we know it will happen. And the ones who contributed the least to the climate change are the ones who are affected the most. And when television pretend not to see And if politicians act as if it's their futures, I mean, just imagine 23, 25 years from now, there is no Putin and there is no Trump anymore, but they act as if it's there. It's not. We need to give young people a voice. And we develop, together with a team, a worldwide team, 13 formats to foster climate literacy and media literacy for young people. And one of it is this format 12. I have a right to a future. Young people, a format, 1 minute, they have a workshop 1 to 3 days, learn about the climate change, learn what they can do, learn about how to communicate it, and learn a lot about media literacy, and they make their own 1 minute clip. Because a space to express for young people through art, and every month a different challenge, a different topic. We will have YouTube channels, we will have TikTok. We don't know what happened with TikTok, but and if you want to organize a workshop, I have some flyers down there. Just join us, because we need to foster political engagement. We need to make team building possible. And tell us what is on your mind, your voice in different languages, because what we will do, we will use the AI to Heijen to actually do a deep fake, but in a good way. The idea is, what can we do that young people in Bolivia, like this young artist, could be understood in Mongolia? Well, here's a rap in Spanish.
Ahora vengo a hablarte de algo diferente. Es que tú cuides el medio ambiente, que seas un ser consciente para que entiendas que todo esto es diferente. Agora venho falar de algo diferente, que é você cuidar do meio ambiente, que seja um ser consciente para que entenda. Now I come to talk to you about something different. It is that you take care of the environment, that you are a conscious being, so that Bata bicham te urtu sinta sarir. Inin chioch ni hamarch. Sanato behil te buwotings.
And you can see you can change the words or not. You can work on the words. There's a lot of things you can change. But that is one way. Because what we have to keep in mind, the next generation will grow up with AI from the very beginning, and they need to learn what it is. Where are the good possibilities? Where are the problems? How to deal with it? And we've done already studies on this. It's really difficult for young people to understand what is going on there and where they can get active. So one thing is, we really need more media education, we need media literacy. And I would say climate crisis is the topic we need to discuss, especially if nobody's talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maya. That was absolutely fantastic. How are we doing for time, Barbara? Okay, yeah, we will keep going. We're going to keep going, and we are going to open it up for, well, we obviously have to hear from Tina Marie, and we're going to open it up to some broader questions as well for the panel. And keep in mind, we will have a brief Q&A too, questions and not comments. I know everyone's very keen to make comments, especially on this topic, but please do keep in mind some questions that you'd like to ask. Maya, do you want to rejoin us? I am actually going to move on to Maya, very keen to hear your insights later when I just sort of ask some broader questions. But Tina Marie, I know I've seen you sort of nodding your head along to a lot of the things that have been discussed so far. Tell us a little bit about what the Ada Academy does and sort of who it was named after as well, because I think that's quite a significant part of this.
Yeah, so Ada Developers Academy was an academy that was created to provide a pathway for software development engineering for women and gender expansive folks. We primarily serve low-income, LGBTQ plus community, Black, Latina, Indigenous, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders. And what makes us a little bit different is that we are really focused on community. We know outside of the world, tech is very competitive. It's really individualistic. And so we've created this environment where it's really intensive. You know, it's a short program. A lot of these people are being reskilled. They're former teachers, they're baristas, they might even be scientists. And so we really help them navigate what it means to be a software developer. So we have an intensive program. The first 6 months is in a virtual classroom now, where they learn all of the foundational levels of coding. They learn Python, they learn other languages. They are also learning Gen AI as well. That's a big portion of what they're doing. And then the other part is really around the applied learning. So they are matched with one of our corporate partners, whether that be a big tech company, emerging tech company, or a nonprofit. And so they get that hands-on experience working on various different projects at a organization. And then they also have a capstone project. And then the last thing that they do too is really around forums where they have discussions around various AI topics that are happening not only in the media, but also around policy, around ethics, all of those good things. So Ada was created in 2013, and the significance of the name was under Ada Lovelace, who was the world's first computer programmer. So she was born in December 10th, 1815, daughter of Lord Byron, but he wasn't really around. And her mother was really adamant that a lot of his wild behavior and very ambience behavior wasn't susceptible to, susceptible to her daughter. So she really wanted to make sure that she was grounded, that she had mathematics and, a lot of those great kind of foundations. But in that day, regardless of, your economic status, women weren't allowed to be educated in schools. They weren't even allowed to go to libraries. And so a lot of, that learning was not only out of sight, but coverted, right? And the really sad thing about Ada Lovelace is she didn't get the recognition that she needed when she was alive. And people didn't find out about her until 100 years after her success. And so she was also part of building one of the first, it was called the Ethical Machine by Charles Babbage. And it was one of the first ways that brought computer science, programming, mathematics all together in a new way that wasn't done before. And so you'll find in a lot of environments where we're talking about tech, her name, some derivative of her name is used to pay homage. There's so many hidden figures in tech, and so it's important that we create and share her story.
Do you find that even in 2025 there is still this scarcity of women working in tech in the US where obviously you're based? Yeah,
it is. It's very sad. I mean, I think there's a lot of different reasons behind it. One is, when we're growing up, we're not shown the diversity of software developers, what they can look like. I know in my area, Seattle, that's the #1 job. So it's a little bit different from, maybe other areas. But what we're not seeing is in youth, we're not really creating opportunities for girls and gender expansive youth to explore that in the same ways that we do for boys. And so it's really important that they're able to do that earlier. A lot of times boys are given just opportunities in ways that girls are not. And then they just get to playing that game a little bit later. If you're a boy and you're doing it at 10 and then you're a woman and you don't start until 17, that's a huge, area of catching up to do. The other thing that we're also noticing is just like the educational pipeline. It's not enough. These environments are not supportive. So a lot of times you will see maybe a bigger group of women joining computer science programs, and because they're one or very few, they're not supported. And so a lot of times they end up changing their major or dropping out. And it's a very sad situation. And so what's really important for us at ADA is to show other pathways. Yes, you can be an engineer, through a computer science program. That's amazing, but there's also these other opportunities to break into tech in a different way.
100%, and just to broaden it up to the group as well, and this includes you as well, Amelia, because I know obviously you're based in the U.S., but I mean I have been watching the headlines with my head in my hands and around this real pullback that we're seeing now around DEI, right, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is of course coming from an executive order by the President of the United States. I find this conversation so pertinent because I find these two things are so connected, right? We're seeing the ascent of AI, it's touching every part of our society and our lives at the same time where, it's literally government mandated to pull back from DEI initiatives. I imagine, Amelia and Tina Marie as well, how is that affecting your programming? You get government funding, right?
Yeah, so it's definitely, we're one of those nonprofits that have diversified our funding, but we are directly impacted. And so, I think DEI has been a dog whistle for so many people, and they don't understand how many folks actually are impacted when you take these types of programs away. It's not just Black people, it's not just people of color, it's women, it's disabled, it's veterans. There's so many different people that are impacted when you take this out. And I think what the other thing that people don't understand is like the ripple effect. First it starts in the US, but then it will go to other places. So it's really about making sure that we do a good job of educating people what the benefits are of DEI, like not only just to make sure that, people have a seat at the table, but also just the importance of, when we're saying prompting things and eliminating those biases, creating products that are diverse, that are for different types of people. So yeah, I mean, this is something that my organization is living every day. Luckily we are based in Seattle, which is, very liberal, very pro DEI. So a lot of it, we are counting on lobbyists and our senator and our governor to really, support what we're doing, but we're also impacted. And, it's very interesting. Every week is very different.
Every week is a new, horror show, it seems. Amelia, you're nodding your head as well. How has it sort of impacted your work too? Or if at all?
I mentioned earlier that I'm part of this project with Canada Council for the Arts, and one reason I was really excited that they selected me is the part of the funding from the Canada Council of the Arts was to help art organizations to think about new types of economies, knowing that they will not be getting the same type of grant support in the next 5 years. And as an American, I said, well, that's actually been quite business as usual for my whole life when it comes to the arts. We don't have the same type of grant fundings for the arts, although I have worked with the National Endowment for the Arts and they have supported me and are in a phenomenal organization in the United States. We don't have direct funding to artists in the United States. And so I was very honored to be a part of this group so that we could begin to really plainly talk about how we want to support one another, how we want to show up for one another, what ways in which we can acknowledge our labor, the ways in which we want to play and dream and create and think about alternative economies. All of us can have feelings in different directions about what happened with NFTs, which were really kind of weird and strange and maybe embarrassing or annoying, but it did. For the first time in my life, I had friends around the world who said, I've been paying my rent for the last 6 months from selling art. And I had not heard that from people who come from my socioeconomic background. I had not heard that from my friends that didn't have wealthy parents say to me, oh yeah, no, I'm just making my rent from making art and bringing joy to people and they're supporting me directly. That had not happened. And even though NFTs and blockchain bring with them their own problems and fraud, and it's a very high barrier for entry. The idea of having direct connections to the people who enjoy these types of immersive experiences, creative play, joy, gaming, thinking, creating, co-creating, and the people who make it together into a closed loop rather than having, which maybe an economic model that's been broken since I've been alive when it comes to supporting the arts. And so bringing that loop together with audiences has just a tremendous amount of potential. And I'm happy to be a part of a group of artists and administrators who are trying to dream in this direction as well. Specifically because that is a way in which we can have sustainable communities, that's a way in which we can have sustainability with our environment, and that's a way in which we can make sure that the arts, if we care about them, can stay centered and bring joy to us in our lives. It brings a tremendous amount of joy for me, and oftentimes I'm a part of this world because of the other creative people who nourish me, not for a distant, unknown audience, but for those who I call my dear friends.
Absolutely, I think we'll need artists more than ever in the next the foreseeable future, I suppose. I'm curious just to step way back just for the entire group. I mean, AI is something, I think there's so much interest because people are still figuring out how they feel about it, how much they should be engaging with AI, experimenting with it. I mean, in my field in journalism, it's very much the same. Some journalists will not go near it, any of the models, even if it actually does, help them with their work in terms of researching something a little bit faster or what have you. What do you guys think in terms of how people, do you think people should be at this point actively exploring these models? Tina Marie?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think the reality as women, a lot of our jobs will be displaced, right? Because AI is going to be something that promotes productivity that a human can't replace. And so a big part of why people like us should be on these panels and having discussion is around how do you work with AI ethically? How do you make sure that it is your co-pilot, your assistant, and not you using it to actually displace people's jobs? But we do know that that is a part of it. So a big part of it is also reskilling people so they know, how to use AI if their job does happen to be replaced. And also, if you're talking about from the development side, AI is a whole nother skill in terms of building those language models, right? And really making sure that you are creating models that are bringing in a lot of data resources, that you have teams that are, again, diverse. So I think more than anything is I would always encourage people to just tap in a little bit, even if you're apprehensive about it, just to kind of see how it can help you. But also remembering that, I think as somebody was saying earlier, is like there is a cost. Like we don't really talk about like sustainability and like what the cost of, actually doing all of those prompts. So really kind of being mindful with the way that we are using AI and not using it to like, again, displace people.
That's Paulina. You're nodding in terms of around the sustainability. Of course, that's been your focus, right?
Yeah, sorry. As I work a lot with generative AI in the creative field, of course, I always ask myself the question whenever I do something with generative AI: do I have to use this now? Like, is this really necessary to use it? And my kind of approach is to say, I use generative AI if it adds value to what I'm doing and couldn't have been done without it. So I really lean into like the factor of innovation and into adding something new to my work that wouldn't have been possible without it. For example, in this documentary I did that you mentioned, that was like a big experiment on using generative AI, talking about generative AI, but also using generative AI. And we had like this AI-generated backdrop on an LED wall and had like a really interesting set design that would not have been possible without adding like AI-generated images of fantasy landscapes and like very interesting images that we brought to life through another AI tool that were moving around, and it looked really cool. And this was something that wouldn't have been possible. But in other terms, I think like I don't use, for my work, I don't use AI to replace something that I could have done easily without AI, because I don't see the point in it. Because I enjoy my work, I enjoy my creative work. I might use it to like create an Excel because I don't like doing that. So I'm glad that that's off my shoulders, kind of. But
intentionality behind
yeah, exactly. Like always ask myself, what does this add to my work if I use AI in that step of my creative field?
Maya, how do you think sort of this next generation is going to kind of navigate AI when it's sort of it's all they've really known? What's that going to look like in 10 years when you have youth who are just so savvy? Are they going to be as intentional as we are in how they're using their models? How do you see it playing out?
It's always difficult to know what is happening.
Your crystal ball. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment they are the older ones, and we are not talking about children, but really adolescents and older. They just use it all the time. It's like, yeah, the tool you have by your side, and to learn when it makes sense for them is not a question, because they just use it because it's easy. They use it for the homework. Maybe the teacher starts saying no, so it's like. For them, it's really something like, haha, I have it, which is great. I mean, it's great that they have this opportunity. It means that our whole educational system has to change. Our whole understanding of learning has to change, and we have to change very quickly. So it's like, it's a cultural technique to use it, and we have teachers, at least in Germany, young people say they don't trust their teachers that they can do it. So we have young people who think AI is the power, and it is. But at the moment we have very little opportunities to really give them the opportunity to think about it, to think about bias. And they really they want to have it in their school system, they want to have it in education. And at the moment, it's just like a wave, and we are drowning.
That's really interesting. So the teachers, ultimately, there needs to be more education among the educators, I suppose. That's really interesting. How do you sort of just to sort of bring it back to the film industry? Obviously, we're here at the Berlinale. How what I find fascinating is that I go to so many conferences and markets and whatnot, and AI is always this topic has never really come up in terms of is it reflecting stereotypes, and it's always men talking about AI, and it's usually about like how copyright and how do we all the new platforms and whatnot. No one is looking kind of beneath the surface at these conversations, which makes me really concerned about the industry and where we're going in terms of film and television and the implementation of this technology. What are your views on how we should ethically or how maybe Robin, actually, if you wanted to take this one in terms of cinema and using AI in the future?
Yeah, I work from a perspective that is not techno-solutionist. This means that I don't believe that, and I work from the belief that technology is not going to be able to fix our technological mistakes. We are at a point where we really should be aware, and I say should because it's pertinent to the issue that the technology is created by the same systems that are running rampant in our inequality, like within our society. So our societal, like our technology is just a reflection of our societal inequalities. So it always comes back to society needs to change, the way that we operate within society needs to change, and we need to be aware of that. And in film, like as a filmmaker, we all have responsibility. So when I brought my case forward to the Dutch Human Rights Institute, I held the university accountable for the use of this software, that I didn't check in before that this wasn't discriminatory, that they didn't do any checks, that they didn't do any due diligence to ensure that whatever they were implementing across all students at their institution would work. And it's the same with filmmakers. It's the same when I go to the supermarket. As a human being, we have a social responsibility. In my case, I took that out and went all the way to court, but you don't have to. If you're making a film, make sure that it adheres to the social responsibility that you bear as a human being, right? You have, your work is going to be out there for many people to be seen, many of who you will never speak to personally, but you will speak to them personally through your work, through your story. and that influences imagery and the way that people see the world. And it's the same with it's just with the AI. If you use it if you use the technology in your film, yeah, you have a responsibility to make sure that it doesn't harm anyone, because do no harm. It's a thing that you should do regardless of what your occupation is. Yeah, does that sort of answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah, Paulina, did you want to jump in?
Can I jump in very quick, because that reminded me of something that it's actually sad, because I some years ago, this is quite a stretch, but I get there. Some years ago, I did some research on sex robots, and I asked myself, there's sex robots, and they all look like giant Barbies, like very, very stereotypical plastic figures that don't look like real women but like Barbies. And I asked myself, why does it have to look like this? And I stumbled upon this theory called cyberfeminism that says, like, actually new technology always brings us the opportunity to overcome like old systems and to create something new. In the case of sex robots, it was like, why does it have to look like a human being? Why does it have to like offer the same possibilities than as a human being? Why can't it be something entirely new and change our perception of the world for the better? And same goes for like artificial intelligence, especially generative AI. Why does there always has to be a reproduction of stereotypes that are already out there, like bias in training data? That is because there's bias in our society. So why can't we, when we develop those systems, like have in mind that we want to change the world for the better? So this is actually, it's missed opportunities.
100%. Maya?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on this. One of the arguments we had in the workshop was, why don't we look at completely different perspective, which we can use with AI? For example, there was a colleague, probably she's in the room, who says, well, a friend of her make a AI therapist. Because if you know which kind of therapist you're looking for, it's possible to, give this, or if it's about meditation, how can you heal? How can people heal? There's a whole bunch of literature about it, and trust it, or how can you be resilient? It's possible, especially for children, to foster resilience very easily. So we have the possibility, of course, in the literature, there is this gender bias still somewhere, but we don't have to ask, what does resilience for a man means, being a real male, having more male energy. So there is a possibility, but we have to find it. We have to find the moment where we really can construct things which have not been here before.
Yeah, and this can't work if the people that create AI systems project their own perception of the world into the systems they are building. This is called I methodology. So they, like, men are building AI systems, so their perception of the world kind of transfers into the systems they are programming. So this is another like really obvious answer to the question of why we need more women in AI and in tech in general.
And I'll just add one more thing. I think it's just like that ongoing evaluation, and even having a third-party evaluation. Like, I think that's so important especially when you're thinking about, tech organizations or film organizations, really to have, advisors, third parties that can really make sure that you are ethical, that you are constantly looking at how you can, consistently not create harm. I think, a lot of times the way that things are designed, inherently, it's not necessarily meant to have negative impact, but it doesn't matter. You have to worry about, what you're doing, what you're building, what the outcome can be long term, if it's harmful, if it's, enforcing biases and stereotypes, and also ensuring, that there's, that we're not exasperating inequalities as well.
Understood. Barbara, are we going to open it up to questions now?
Yeah, maybe the idea is we collect 2 or 3 questions and then you will answer if there are questions. Yes?
I think yes.
1, 2, Okay. I will hand you over the microphone, and then we collect the 2 questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the panel. I wonder, how can we transfer all these shoulds and these great ideas into practice? Like, what's the next step? How can we, make companies and in education institutions actually do this?
We collect the second one.
Thanks a lot for this enlightening panel. More or less same question in terms of regulatory means. What could be the next steps to fight specific bias in generative AI? For instance, in Europe, it could be the next step for the AI Act when it comes to the creative industries. Thank you.
Good, they're both actually connected. So how do we put these ideas into action, and also where does regulation come in, and how will that move the dial as well, which are obviously very 2 connected things. Robin, did you want to start? Then we'll sort of work our way down.
Yeah, so what you can do is, so I always say that it doesn't have to be really big. It could be as small as, for example, transferring, like telling your wherever you work or for yourself to transfer to a non-big tech operated system. So that could be, a lot of people are migrating, for example, from Meta to Signal, which is already showing big tech companies or the people that are actually making open source transparent, either that be in the public domain or just regular open source, that this is the type of technology, this is the type of journey that we want to continue on, the road that we want to continue on, instead of feeding into the mainstream loop, so to say, of, okay, I need to use this because everybody does. But we can see that at mass, we can really migrate from specific systems, and it works. Second question?
About regulation.
What was the question about regulation?
I think it
Sorry.
was...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, well, that's a whole other hour lecture, I think. But with the AI Act, it's a good big step, right? That there is now regulation, at least in Europe, about how technological systems should be designed and operating. However, I also see a lot of contradictions within the AI Act. So there is, for example, rules on transparency and privacy, but there are a bunch of exceptions to those rules that governments, for example, can enforce. So we really are back at step 1 when it comes to surveillance and the protection of our protection of our data, and the way that we have our power over what is ours. And then what the next step of the AI Act would be to really sort of basically erase those contradictions and really like put the power back into the users, which is us, where we have all these terms and conditions that we sign to, but we have no idea what it actually says, and the companies to be responsible for the way that they treat our what's it called? Information and contact information and privacy, etc. That's the best I could do.
Absolutely. I mean, Amelia as well. I know you seemed like you had an answer for some of these questions as well.
Yes, I mean, when it comes to regulation, and something that I've spoken at various panels, and people have given me this feedback, so I'm not just sharing my own wisdom, but something that I'm frequently asked and other people comment on, is how interdisciplinary we need the approaches and conversations to be. Policymakers may not have thought about artists in the creative economy 4 years ago when we were talking about regulating AI, and now it's very apparent why they needed to be in the room. We see the writers' strike in Hollywood, and subsequently the actors' strike in Hollywood drilled that down, and I'm not surprised that those 2 industries really led the conversation in how we should regulate, and how industries specifically can regulate themselves in advance of any type of political regulation as well. And that was an example I think that Hollywood did very well by saying we can decide where and when we want to use this tool, how and when we want to use it. It's still being used pervasively in Hollywood, just not in necessarily the writers' rooms or maybe for actors and performances, but we can have those kind of guidelines and we can decide as a community, okay, this is how it works in theater, this is how it works in film, this is how it will work for art auctions, this is how it will work, right? But having all of those people who are so dependent on the regulation in order to have dignified lives need to be a part of the conversation. And that's why policymakers, I think, really need to extend the way that they think of who is at stake, because it's all of our lives are at stake. We need to have so many different types of insights from those who are advocating for against gender discrimination or advocating for education, those of us who are making our living in entertainment, those of us who are writing as journalists. It touches so many spaces in our lives. And so if I say nothing else, I will say to make sure that you include the very diverse people that you see around you in your city, because it will impact all of us and all of us have something at stake.
100%.
I'd even say, to touch on even more what you're saying is, we really have to make sure that the communities most impacted by this are the ones that are helping lead what the policy is, not just being in the room, like leading it. And we have to make sure that we are giving them a voice, that we're putting them in platforms where they can actually have real decision-making power, and that they, again, interdisciplinary, I think that's a huge one, but really being about how we can make this a worldview, because the reality is, we're more alike than we're not alike. And if we're just focusing on the US or we're just focusing on the EU, we're really limiting ourselves. So we really have to have a global mindset of how we are going to ensure that this is ethical, that we're doing things by the book.
Of course. Maya and Paulina.
And maybe we can learn a little bit from how did we in Germany change or just got a more vision for stereotypes, and that gender stereotypes are not the smartest way. I've working in the field now for 25 years, and I really fought hard for 10 years, then 5, and I just gave up because it was not possible. And then one day, a group came together, worked very smart, brought everybody who's in Germany. One day, Maria Furtwängler stand for meiner Tür, standing for my door, and we started to make a really clever, strategic way how to bring this up, involve all broadcasters, bring everybody together. Found the right way of research, because I've done it before, so we know what the result is, and it was really a smart way, and she and her colleagues were so smart and just bring it up again and again and again, and I think it worked because it was positive, and it was shown why it is important not to reinforce these old, stupid stereotypes again. And of course, it helped that Netflix suddenly was there with completely different ideas, with just, locking up the things of that race matters in Bridgerton. Yeah, look it up. Or in Shitty Creek, no homophobe person. Just, little tweaks which open up a whole variety of creativity and unique selling points. And at some points we have to do, or we can learn a bit from this and see, okay, what is our problem with AI? Where are the problems? How can we work together, bring the decision makers on one table? Who can do this? How can we make it? How can we make clear this is the problem? And these are maybe the opportunities where we can go in a different way.
Absolutely. Things like Bridgerton and Schitt's Creek, a great example. That doesn't just happen. Those are people who are making those choices and decisions, the gatekeepers. Pauline, did you want to add something before we close this one to this?
I don't really have to add anything to what the others just said. Maybe just on a from a user-based point of view, as I already said before, there's things we can do when we use AI on a daily basis, decisions that we can make that go from whether to use it or not to how we use it, how we prompt it, what we do with the results, how we share our knowledge about it, how we talk about it, how we spread information, connect to each other's talk in settings like this one. So, I mean, this is not going to change the AI Act, but this is gonna change how all of us work with AI and like maybe how we deal with results coming from AI.
Absolutely. I mean, how many of you in the room have are thinking differently even after this session based on our amazing panelists and what they've said about AI? I mean, certainly for me, yeah, we're, there we go. We've got a number of people who are already, the cogs are going in terms of the prompts that we're using and all of these actions that we can take. Right, I will close the session here. Thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I've learned so much, and I really appreciate everybody for staying with us too. Thank you.